All right, and welcome back to the All About PA podcast, where we talk about anything and everything Pennsylvania. I'm Chandler.
And I'm Renice, and this is All About PA. Today we are with Kadida Kenner, founding CEO of New Pennsylvania Project, joining us for the first time in our All About PA podcast to talk a little bit more about what's going on in this year's general election. So Kadida, please tell us a little bit more about Pennsylvania Project.
Sure. So the New Pennsylvania Project was founded in May of 2021. So we're just a little older than 4 years. We're a voting rights organization. We are focused on centering historically disenfranchised communities in the Commonwealth, and that would include Black, Indigenous, and other folks of color, the youth, which we consider under 35, and immigrant communities in our work. And for the last several years, we've been doing lots of voter registration, providing lots of civic education to overcome myths and misinformation and disinformation, and mobilizing folks to the polls and getting those that we've registered to vote to actually then go out and vote.
Amazing. I love the fact that PA has amazing organizations like New PA Project, just taking on all these very important things that people should be aware about and constantly reaching out to voters. That's amazing.
Yeah, you guys are really doing amazing work because there's so many Pennsylvanians each year that might not be registered or don't even know about these elections. And I feel like with the judicial election this year, I feel like it's especially a source of confusion, or, people might not even know that this retention election is happening. And it's so important that we're able to reach these voters. So what would you say is the reason why this year's judicial election is so important? Like, what would you tell a voter who isn't really paying attention why they should actually come out to vote this year?
Pennsylvania voters are very powerful. We're one of only 7 states in the entire country in which we get to elect all of our judges and justices in partisan elections. And in these hyper-partisan times, it is very important that we come out and vote in an election in which most people do not. We leave it to a minority of people to actually make decisions for the majority. And judicial elections are really important here in the Commonwealth in 2025. It is the Pennsylvania Supreme Court that has protected our voting rights and making sure that we have maps free of gerrymandering. It's very important to protect our voting rights in this moment as it relates to all other things that's relative to them. And that could be access to abortion. It could be fully funding public schools. It could be all the things that we all care about, protecting the environment and such. And so judicial elections are important. And unfortunately, too many people stay home. They don't come out and vote in them. And we need to change that in 2025 to ensure we have voting rights for 2026.
Agreed, 1,000%. We need to get these people outside and to the polls, or get registered to vote by mail as soon as possible. My follow-up to that is, why are billionaires like Jeff Yazd and Elon Musk so interested in our courts?
They're interested because they haven't been disrupted as of yet, right? And so I think Jeff Yazd and Elon Musk might be really interested in our Pennsylvania courts because they've been unable to be successful in places like Wisconsin and the places in which they've given millions of dollars to disrupt those courts or try to usurp the authority of those courts. And so here in Pennsylvania, birthplace of American democracy, you might want to take the oldest court in the nation, being Pennsylvania Supreme Court. And if we allow for dark money and mega billionaires to come in and disrupt our democracy here in Pennsylvania, it's a problem. And it's one of the reasons why we have so many people who are disinterested in voting, because they feel like their one vote doesn't count when you have billionaires who seem to be able to buy elections.
Yeah, it's gross how much money they can throw at these things. And I know that they would love nothing more than to be able to do that. And so my question is really, why would they want to throw so much money? Like, what exactly could happen if in November our judges are not retained? They are not kept on the court. Like, how does that create an opening for billionaires and moneyed interests to get into PA?
What's different about retention elections is that these 3 Supreme Court justices up for this retention election they're not facing a challenger or a candidate running against them. A retention election is a simple yes or no vote, whether or not they should be kept on the bench for another 10 years. And if by chance billionaires from outside of Pennsylvania and some from inside Pennsylvania are able to use their money to persuade voters or change things, it could lead to a judicial crisis here in the Commonwealth. Because if they are not retained, there is no one to take their place. There's no candidate to jump in to take their seat. We would leave it up to the possibility that Governor Josh Shapiro could appoint justices to the bench. And in these hyper-politicized times, it would be unlikely for him to put forward a interim candidate for Supreme Court that would also get the approval of the Pennsylvania Senate. And not just a minority of the approval, but a 2/3 majority of the Pennsylvania Senate to agree on who could sit on the bench until we have the next judicial election, which will be 2027. So the likelihood is, if these 3 justices are not retained, those seats will remain vacant for 2 full years. And that would basically ensure that major cases that need to be heard in Pennsylvania courts would not be able to have a decision, as it would leave the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania with 4 justices and not 7, and gridlocked on typically how they believe to interpret the Constitution of Pennsylvania, which would lead to not having decisions being made here in the Commonwealth.
That's insane. That's just too much power and control and just greed and selfishness. I can go on. I can honestly go on. And again, the New Pennsylvania Project is doing amazing work. And I love the fact that you're here today. So if anybody's listening, please just get in touch with the New Pennsylvania Project. They are doing the work and they are educating voters on a daily basis. And my question to that is, what are the really cool, creative things the New Pennsylvania Project is doing to reach voters?
You have to meet voters and those who are not registered to vote yet where they are. And so for us, that is showing up wherever you may be. If it's outside your local grocery store or bodega, if it is at the schoolyard, if it is in a place of worship, wherever you may be, we're going to go and try to engage you. And one of the ways we've changed things up here in 2025 is recognizing that, just like we're today on a podcasts are turning into a pretty big deal. And so we have started our own podcast as a New Pennsylvania Project. It is called Slingshot the Podcast. So you need all 3 of those words. And you can see it wherever you watch or listen to any of your podcasts. It is a video included there. And it's a way for us to communicate with those that are often misinformed because someone is trying to actually provide them with the misinformation. It's a way for us to focus on the communities in which we center, and we do it with a lot of levity and fun, and it's a lot of culture and music and talk about entertainment and sports, and then we kind of sneak in a little political talk so that we can get that in as well, because our lives are political, whether we realize it or not, or want it to be or not. But all of the things that happen in our lives have some type of political aspect to them. And so we do want to sneak that into the conversation. A lot of our podcast episodes are entitled after music and song, and we go in from there. And that's just a way to get the culture together and make sure that we're bringing about change and doing it through the avenues in which people are receiving their news and information.
I love that. I love all of that.
Yeah, that's so important. I mean, I know coming from my hometown in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, there are so many, particularly like guys I know who are just not super political, say that it's not really worth their time, but they listen to podcasts and, they're listening to the usual suspects, like Joe Rogan and stuff, and they think it's not political. They're like, oh, I don't follow politics.
Right.
But they do, because they're listening to stuff like Joe Rogan and whatnot, even if they're not, going there for the politics, it seeps through. And so I think stuff like Slingshot the Podcast that the New Pennsylvania Project is doing, stuff like this is super important, because it's like, we really do have to reach people where they're at. I mean, there's so many voters in Pennsylvania who just aren't registered to vote, and could really come out in full force if, we meet them where they are. And it's tough because it's some people don't want to get involved because they're dispirited and stuff. So yeah, just want to shout out you guys for doing that hard work and going to meet people where they're at.
Well, thank you for that. I'll say as an organization, it's not just young folks that we're engaging.
Yeah.
It's, more seasoned folks as well. I can say as an organization, we have registered 3 women who were over the age of 90 to get registered to vote. And all 3 of them had never been registered to vote prior to us engaging them. And
Wow.
one of the 100-year-old women that we saw was still driving.
I'm shook. That's insane.
She was still driving. We saw her outside the grocery store. She was pushing her cart into her car to unload. We stopped her in the parking lot of the grocery store and asked her to get registered to vote. She did. And when we saw the age that she put down, for her eligibility question, are you 18 or older? Absolutely, right. I'm 18 or older. and to find out when asked the question, it's 100 years. Why have you never registered to vote? And she said, no one ever asked me. No one ever asked me to vote.
Wow.
No one ever asked me to get registered to vote. And so we can't assume that everyone is registered to vote, and particularly the youth in Pennsylvania, when, statistics are telling us only 1 in 4 high school students of voting age who are eligible to vote are actually registered. So we've got to talk to young folks, older folks. Everybody needs to hear this message. And we can't assume that people are registered to vote, because they may not.
Yeah, I feel like I've read this before, that voters are just waiting for a sign and they don't even know it. And your content, your outreach, your podcast segment, could be that sign that is they're waiting for to just go register. That's insane. Over 100. I mean, blessed.
Yeah, over 100. Yeah, right. And, I think what brings me the most joy in this work, right, because you can't continue to do work such as this if there's no joy in it, is registering folks to vote who were formerly incarcerated, who have been lied to and told that they're ineligible to vote, or maybe they moved after being incarcerated in Florida, right? Or they moved to Pennsylvania after that. There's different laws in different states, which for them, they do believe that they can't vote. But when you live in Pennsylvania, when you reside here after incarceration, you absolutely have the freedom to vote the moment your feet hit the street. Wow. And a lot of people just are misinformed about that, or straight up lied to about their status of being able to cast a ballot in the Commonwealth. And that's what makes the Commonwealth, pretty progressive, in that in Pennsylvania, the moment your feet hit the street, you absolutely have the franchise, and you have the right to vote and the freedom to vote in the Commonwealth. And so anytime I come across someone who's like, I can't vote, and I look them in the eye and they, I get the idea from them, the reason why they think they can't vote. And we talk about, oh, I'm a former felon, or I'm a felon. And number one, we say, you're not who you were on the worst day of your life, perhaps. You are formerly incarcerated, you're a returning citizen, and you are eligible to vote in the Commonwealth. And let's get you registered to vote, because those closest to the pain need to be closest to the power.
Correct.
Absolutely. And on that wonderful note, we'll wrap up the segment. Thanks again so much, Kadida, for coming on. And double shout out to the New Pennsylvania Project and their Slingshot, the podcast, doing just fantastic work all across the state. So thanks again.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Kadida. And that's all, PA. Thank you for joining us. My name is Bernice.
And I'm Chandler, and we'll be back soon. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We're on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Blue Sky at All About PA to keep up with all things Pennsylvania and when we drop our next episode.
Special thanks to our editors at Rolling Lemon Creative. You guys are awesome.